So when Resident Evil 8 was announced and eventually released, I didn't really give it a chance. I really didn't care about this game. Even though I have played the last Resident Evil remakes and Resident Evil has become one of my favorite franchise again, I really didn't care about Resident Evil back in the day. I used to play some Resident Evil games back in the 360 era, but then I kinda switched to more online games and everything, so I really didn't care about Resident Evil. So when the game was announced, I was like, eh. But after that, I decided to give Resident Evil a chance with the remakes, and that absolutely made me fall in love with the series again. But I still couldn't manage to care about the newer Resident Evil games. I didn't care about Resident Evil 7. I did play it back then. I thought it was a cool game. But for me, that wasn't Resident Evil. That was another game that just had the name of Resident Evil and had a weird ass dude called Chris Redfield, but that was not my Chris Redfield. That was not Chris Redfield, and till this day, I think that's not Chris Redfield. That's an imposter that put Chris Redfield's name because damn, that character design was ugly as hell. So then one day I was just craving Resident Evil games. I wanted to play Resident Evil, but I've played Resident Evil 4 Remake a bunch, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 5. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give Resident Evil 8 a try. It's been like 3 years since they released. I think it's fair that I give that game a try. Even though 7 was not my cup of tea, maybe 8 is my cup of tea, and oh man, I'm so happy that I gave this game a try, cause it's amazing. And even though I never wanted to give Village another try or an opportunity, everything I saw relating about this game, it was that it was disappointing, that it was negative this, negative that. So that also like made me not wanna play the game, because if many people are bashing on it, maybe it's for a reason, but I was wrong. So last week I bought the game and it was amazing. I had a lot of fun that I didn't expect it, and that was the best thing. I love going to a game with low expectations and then the game surprising me every single time. So I did 2 playthroughs in the game because I bought the gold edition, so I had the third person. So I decided to do my first playthrough in first person, as the game was made and was intended to be played in a trend and hardcore difficulty. I couldn't do it. I got my ass beaten in the first segment with the werewolves. The name is just too weird. I'm not like, going to even try to pronounce it. I'm just going to make a fool of myself. But I couldn't do it. The enemies were just bullet sponges. I shoot them every single time and there were a bunch of enemies. I couldn't do it. So sadly, I had to lower the difficulty. Yeah, that's a shame. I know. I'm such a disgrace. But then I completed my first playthrough in the normal difficulty, and even though I had my struggles, I didn't struggle that much as I did on hardcore. Then I played the game on first person, and it's definitely not as scary as Resident Evil 7, but it has those action factors that I like, not as much as Resident Evil 6. That game just feels like a Michael Bay movie. But I do like my Resident Evil when it has a little bit of action, a fun action, and also horror survival. I love the perfect mix between those two games, and I feel like Village has a little bit more of action, but has like the perfect mix, and that's what I'm going to be talking about a little bit more in depth in the video. In my second playthrough, I did it in third person, and that just changed my whole perspective on the game. It's amazing how the first person and the third person changes so much how you view and feel the game. So the first person feels like a normal standard action survival horror game, but the third person, for me, it truly feels like a Resident Evil experience. So when you're first playing the game and you switch from Ethan to Chris Redfield, you don't really notice the change. You just see different weapons and that's it. So you know that you're playing as Chris because now you have an assault rifle and a whole of military gear, but you never see Chris, you just see his hand. So I mean, it's the same thing that's playing with Ethan. The only difference are the guns and the dialogue and the hand. That's how you distinguish between those two. Those 3 things are the thing that distinguish them. But when you're in third person, now you can play as Chris if it was Resident Evil 5 or 6. And it was so good to get my boy Chris Redfield back in the franchise, and in such a good way, because this Chris Redfield, it's amazing. The only problem with Chris Redfield RE7, It's not its personality or how he is written, it's how ugly he is. And I'm never going to shut up about that. He looks ugly as hell in that game. But this Chris Redfield, first of all, he is really similar to the Chris Redfield in 5 and 6. And his design is great. I love the jacket. I love how badass he is when he first storms into the house. Like, you feel threatened by him. So I loved gaining control of Chris back, and you truly feel that when you're in third person because you can see now the character and it feels like you're playing an older Resident Evil game. And let's not forget about my boy Ethan Winters, because he is one of the most underrated characters in the RE universe. To be honest, I didn't really care about him in RE7. I mean, he was a good character, don't get me wrong, he was a really cool character in RE7, but I feel like in RE8 something changed and I feel a little bit more connected to him. I cared about him a little bit more, and the ending was devastating. I mean, him seeing sacrifice himself for Mia and his daughter, and see how he went through hell to get his daughter back. It was beautiful. But enough with the characters and the whole camera perspective. Now let's talk about the gameplay, because gameplay is really important in this game. So as I said before, the gameplay in the first person, I really didn't like it that much. I mean, the aiming feels a little bit stiff. I mean, the blocking and everything kind of feels cool in first person, but the gameplay is nice. All weapons feel nice. I played this on a PS5, so the adaptive triggers were really tough on certain weapons, and I love that sensation. I like the triggers when they change based on the weapon. That was cool. There were some segments in the game where I feel like the game dragged for a bit. I mean, the part in the factory, also in the castle. The castle was great, but I feel like it wasn't used that great, and you just were running around killing enemies, getting the heads, and then going back, putting the head, going to search for the other one, or going from one head to another one to search from the other one while you're being chased by this enemy. Like, I don't know, I feel like those parts in the game where you're going from one place to another to find a piece, to go back to that same place to put that same piece, and then going back to another piece, it was really boring, to be honest. I felt like the game felt very repetitive certain times. Also, some enemy types were annoying as hell. Like, some enemies were just really annoying to deal with. So now you have to go and search for one piece to go back to the place you were before, while you have to face those same enemy types that are just a pain in the ass. So those were the little segments in the game where I was like, oh, this is really boring. But now, the segments where this game truly shines are in the boss battles. The boss battles in this game are amazing. Obviously, they are a little bit repetitive, but I feel like that's with every single RE game. I feel like in every single RE game, you go to the boss fight, you identify the flaws, how to trick this enemy, how to deal more damage, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. But I don't feel like that's a bad thing that they are repetitive. I kinda enjoy how boss battles kinda are a little bit repetitive. I like it, and I like to see how the character that you once saw transform into this bigger monster and everything. There wasn't a boss battle that I was like, this is boring as hell, like, get this. No, I had fun with every single boss fight, and I feel like the types of boss fight variations that you're having, because you're having multiple boss fights with multiple different enemies, and everyone is very different from one another, and I feel like the game truly manages to make them very distinctable with every single one of them. My favorite boss fight and my favorite chapter is the one with the dollhouse. I don't remember her name, but that level is amazing. First of all, that's the scariest part in the whole game, being chased by that giant baby crawling while he's crying and while he's laughing. And you don't have no weapons, just a flashlight in a whole dark house while you're trying to turn up the elevator, and then when you get to the elevator you have to play hide and seek to find her. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty cool boss fight. It was really creative, and it was one of the best parts in the game. The puzzle in that whole dollhouse section with the mannequin, I had really fun with it. Plus, the replayability on this game is nuts. I mean, I had like 2 playthroughs, and I still want to get even more playthroughs with different weapons and different things and different that, and I'm going for the platinum trophy. Don't get it twisted, I'm going for the Platinum Trophy, and Platinum Trophies in RE games are hard as hell. But this game, sadly, it is a step down from the horror survival elements from RE7. The scariest part is in this game are in the dollhouse, and it's because you have no weapons and you're in a dark, closed space with just a flashlight. But when you have a weapon and you have a shotgun, it's really hard to feel scared, to be honest. And some of the bosses are not even scary that much. So the game has some good elements, but also some bad elements, and I feel like toning down the horror wasn't the move. I feel like this game should have been also as scary as RE7 because I love scary games, to be honest. So I'm so happy I gave RE8 a try, and if you haven't played Resident Evil Village or RE8, you need to try it. Please give this game a try. I'm sure you're going to like it. If me, that I didn't like RE7 that much and I didn't have that many high expectations about this game and I love it and I enjoy it, you need to give it a try. But let me know down below in the comments, what do you think? Have you played RE8 before and did you like it? Tell me what you didn't like about this game. Did you feel that it was disappointing? Let me know down below in the comments. I read every single comment. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe for more video game content. And I'll see you in the next video.